important for us. This is not consisting of any water vapors or dust particles. It is cool and calm. It is ideal for flowing aeroplanes. Then there is another part of the atmosphere called mesosphere. There we can get here, as you have seen, this is stratosphere. Then there we have stratopause. Then we have here it is we have mesosphere. Then we can get temperature less than minus 80 degrees Celsius. This is particular around a height of 80 kilometers. That is why it is regarded as the coldest layer in the atmosphere. As altitude increases, rise of temperature is not there. So rise of temperature is not there. Also, fall of temperature is not there. So there is a mesopause around 90 kilometers. Now we will talk about ionosphere, which has been very important part in my research work. This ionosphere is ranging from 80 kilometers to around 600 kilometers. As the name indicates, it consists of ions. Since ions, that means these charges are in motion, they produce a magnetic field. This ionosphere is responsible for reflection of radiations. So whatever from the surface of the earth we are sending out radiations, they get reflected back to the surface by this ionosphere. This makes radio communication possible. So if we see, we find that here from thermosphere onwards, there it is an ionosphere. So if we find that we are getting a rise in temperature more than 0 degree Celsius. But a region from 85 kilometers to 400 kilometers, it is called thermosphere. Here altitude increases, but there is a rise in temperature. Daytime temperature is around 1400 degrees Celsius, while as night temperature varies from 240 degrees Celsius. Now there is exosphere, which is the outer jacket of the atmosphere. That is around 9600 kilometers. Exact boundary where atmosphere ends is not distinct, but this outer sphere is having some magnetic properties. Therefore, it is called magnetosphere. So this was the basis of my research work. My research work started from this part of this atmosphere, that is ionosphere. Now I will talk about Whistler's and VLF emissions. Is it visible, sir, my screen?
Yeah.
So Whistler's and VLF emissions, it is a new type of research in J&K, Jammu and Kashmir. The main contribution to these ground-based observations of Whistler's at low latitudes have been made by Indian, Japanese, and Chinese workers. The Whistler observation in India started at Gulmarg by late Professor Tantre's group. The Whistler observations were then extended to Nainital, Srinagar, and Agra, and Varanasi. And then in Jammu in 1997. There I worked as a research fellow in DST-sponsored project, and I carried out the research work from 97 to 2001 by recording very unique type of data like Whistler's VLF emissions, his rising and falling tones, his triggered emissions, and so many research papers were published in national and international journals. Now, I will give a brief account of what are these Whistler's and VLF emissions. This is very new phenomena. This is a new type of research in J&K carried out by, as I told you, by Professor Tantre's group and myself and Dr. Lalabani and Dr. Penkosa, under whose supervision I worked. So among the many accidental discoveries of science, like Newton's laws of gravitation, Archimedes' principle, Teflon, microwave oven, synthetic pacemakers, radio astronomy, X-rays. So these Whistler's and VLF frequency emissions are among those. Whistler's are remarkable bursts of very low frequency electromagnetic waves produced by ordinary lightning discharge in a sudden that occurs typically during thunderstorms. The discharge being electrically charged, the discharge being between the regions of regions of a cloud, that is intra cloud lightning, IC, between two clouds, CC lightning, or between a cloud and a ground. These bursts travel into the ionosphere where their interaction with the free electrons forces them to follow approximately the lines of the force of magnetic field into the opposite hemisphere. As the radio waves travel along this path, they are dispersed. This means that different frequency components of these waves travel with different velocity. Usually the high frequency travel faster than the low frequency. Thus, lightning discharge radiated electromagnetic waves over a wide frequency range, and this lightning discharge is considered as the source of these whistlers. As the energy propagates from one hemisphere to the other, it is dispersed and arrives at the receiver as a whistling tone, usually of descending frequency. Such signals are called whistlers, and the theory has been developed in some detail by Story and Halliwell. There is yet another class of audio frequency signals which we call very low frequency emissions. These emissions appear to be related to the magnetic disturbances. One of the most common type of these emissions is the hiss, a band of noise several kilocycles wide, which is usually heard below 10 kilocycles. It is occasionally accompanied by one or more discrete tones in the same range of frequency. Another is so-called dawn course, a combination of short 0.1 to 0.2 seconds rising whistlers and warbling tones. Various isolated events, including rising and falling tones and combination thereof, can be observed. Very low frequency emissions are frequently associated with strong whistlers. Sometimes a whistler appears to trigger short periods of dawn chorus or hiss. When whistlers were explained as radiations from the lightning discharge that had traveled several Earth radii into the outer space, it becomes clear that they contained useful information about the medium through which they had propagated. The actual variation of the frequency with time, it is shown in this figure. You can see in this figure, this is the frequency along y-axis, this is the time. It is not like that it increases first, then it goes on increasing, but from top to bottom, it has a descending tone. From a higher value, it increases and takes the lowest value. By plotting 1 by root of under square root of f against time, we obtain a straight line. The reciprocal of the slope of this line, it is called a dispersion d. So we can define the dispersion of as equal to time of propagation multiplied by the square root of the frequency. Here it is this graph. Now you can see this example of the whistler. These are called a sonogram. Here this is one example of the whistlers. I can show you more. The dispersion of whistlers depends upon the length of the path over which it travels and on the electron density along the path. Hence, at high latitudes, where the paths are very long, dispersion is high. And conversely, at low latitudes, dispersion is low. When electron density is high, the dispersion is also high. Since dispersion is closely related to electron density, it becomes important quantity in the study of variation of electron density in the ionosphere and magnetosphere. By analyzing dispersion curve of the VLF Whistler waves, plenty of information about the magnetosphere medium can be obtained. This is very important to note here, that we can get a plenty of information about the magnetospheric medium that can be obtained. For example, which parameters? Electron density, total electron content in the flux to electric field. Now, like these whistlers, we have one more type of these emissions, that is VLF emissions. Like whistlers is also a class of natural radio phenomena whose origin is in the magnetospheric sources or in man-made sources such as VLF transmitters. So,
you conclude now.
Okay, sir. So this is Whistler recording technique. Simply a T-type antenna, an amplifier, and a tape recorder are used for recording such type of whistlers, and then they can be analyzed. They have been analyzed at Varanasi and NPL Series Center, New Delhi. So this is these are sometimes some types of the sonographs of the whistlers and the VLF emissions. So this is the daily number of events and the days plotted. So diurnal variation, this is the seasonal variation. Okay, number of months, and we have this is VLFS, spectrograms of VLFS emissions recorded at Jammu. So spectrograms of VLFS again recorded at Jammu. Now I will conclude what I am getting out of these Whistler observations. The present observations of the VLF emissions and whistlers along with ESD whistlers at Jammu clearly suggest that these VLF emissions are generated in the magnetosphere due to whistler mode interaction with these particles. This experimental study is unlikely to be the final word on the origin of these events, and further experimental confirmation will of course be required at low latitudes. The observation has a potential to be a circuit breaker in our understanding of the generation mechanism of these events observed at low latitudes. However, further detailed mechanism of the data presented here is a challenging problem, and this task will be left for further investigation. And much detailed experimental and modeling study remains to be done in this area, but our results naturally account for the essential features of the whistlers and VLF his emissions simultaneously observed at our low latitude ground station, Jammu. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Raju ji.
Thank you so much, sir.
Informative presentation on whistlers and VLF emissions. Now, we are, dear participants, we are highly delighted and privileged to have with us a renowned endocrinologist and a very eminent researcher of the Kashmir Valley, Dr. M. Ashraf Ganai, who is professor of endocrinology at one of the premier institutes of our valley, that is Sher Kashmir Institute of Medical Sciences. And today he'll be talking about lifestyle disorders. In spite of having a PhD, being very busy with OPD degree, OPD duties today, Dr. Ashraf Saab has managed to sneak some time for this presentation. We are highly thankful to you, sir. We welcome you to this refresher course. And today's moderator, Dr. Abid Bande Saab, will formally welcome and introduce our resource person, Dr. M. Ashraf Ganai. Over to Dr. Abid Bande Saab.
Thank you, Geet Saab. Thanks a lot. Assalamu alaikum, Ashraf Saab, and good afternoon, everybody. Today, we have the honor and privilege of having with us nation's top endocrinologist, Dr. Muhammad Ashraf Ganai, who has more than around 20 years of clinical experience. Professor Ganai has completed his MBBS from Government Medical College, Srinagar in 1993, and his MD from Sher Kashmir Institute of Medical Sciences in 1998. He completed his DM from AIMS New Delhi in 2003. Dr. Ganai has qualified Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates, ECFMG, which certifies readiness of international medical graduates to enter residency or fellowship programs in United States after passing both parts of United States medical licensing examination with flying colors in 2006. Professor Ganai has been actively engaged in patient care, research, and teaching at SIKIMS and AIMS New Delhi. He is currently guiding DM, MD, and PhD scholars and at SIKIMS and AIMS New Delhi. Professor Ganai has contributed a lot during the span of these 20 years. He is privileged to have successfully initiated a multi-specialty society named as Metabolic Syndrome, Prediabetes, and Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, MPPCOS, Society for Researchers and Clinicians. This society works to encourage and advance and advance pre-diabetes and related disorders, and to organize, establish, conduct superintend or control directly or indirectly the research in problems relating to lifestyle diseases, especially polycystic ovarian syndrome, metabolic syndrome, and pre-diabetes and related disorders. Professor Ganai is currently president of the society. He has established a dedicated polycystic ovarian syndrome station for PCOS patients at SKIM Srinagar under the aegis of nationwide PCOS task force study. He has been assigned the task of chief coordinator of nationwide PCOS task force study with a grant of rupees 9 crores. He is also credited for developing a state-of-the-art advanced genetics center at Sher-e Kashmir Institute of Medical Sciences, Srinagar, with 5.28 crore grant by Department of Science and Technology as a principal investigator and coordinator. This center is fully functional and has 20 employees, 2 faculty members, and 12 PhD and postdoctoral students right now. He has carried out several health surveys and awareness camps in various educational institutions across the villages and towns in various districts of state of Jammu and Kashmir and New Delhi. Uh, Several thousand people have been screened, and those who were detected abnormal were treated and counseled. He has successfully organized several international and national conferences and training workshops in the area of NCDs. He has also published several health awareness articles in local and national newspapers, in addition to TV programs from time to time. Uh, Dr. Ganai has also been instrumental in indexing of Indian Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism as executive editor, and is currently editor of Diabetes Obesity International Journal, DOIJ, and a review editor of Frontiers in Endocrinology. Professor Ganai has also been a reviewer of more than 20 national and international journals. He is the principal guide for 14 MD, DM, and PhD students. He has a lot of honors and awards to his credit. He has been awarded the T.C. Anand Kumar Gold Medal at Global Conference on Reproductive Health by AIMS, New Delhi, and Indian Society for the Study of Reproduction and Fertility at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He has also received Rashtriya Gaurav Award for Meritorious Services, Outstanding Performance, and Remarkable Role by Lieutenant General K.M. Seth at a seminar on economic growth and national integration at New Delhi in the year 2018. He has also been awarded J.K. Practitioner Award of Excellence by Doctors Association of Kashmir. He has also received the first prize for poster presentation of Profile of Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome in North Indian Women. He has been conferred with MMS Ahuja Award for being Best Outgoing DM Student for the year 2003 at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. He has also received Young Investigator Award, Tikuko Hormone Scholarship, Japan. He has been awarded the first prize in quiz contest in pre-Congress Fellows meeting of the Asia Pacific Pediatric Endocrine Society, Cairns, Australia. So, with these few words, I formally welcome Professor Ashraf Ganai on behalf of UGC HRDC Center Kashmir University, the participants and the coordinator, and of course on my personal behalf, to enlighten us with his words of wisdom. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, sir, for a very detailed introduction. I don't know what else. Information. Anyway,
Thanks, sir.
I'm always very happy and always ecstatic.
Your audio is not clear.
My friend, Ishaq Saab, when he invites me.
So there is some issue with the audio.
Am I audible now?
Can you please use headphones or this microphone or something?
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Sir.
yeah, sir. Yes.
Right. Thank you. So, as I was saying, I'm always, when Ishaq Saab invites me, and I'm always more than ready to deliver a talk, whatever engagements I have. So, and I also take it as it is my passion to spread information among society, among people who can make a dent in curbing the menace of lifestyle disorders. And I think the teachers, lecturers, professors, in fact, as well as students, they are the best medium to bring a change in society. And that is how I always feel pleasure in delivering a talk to this type of audience. So I will be speaking what is the new epidemic which is started globally as well as in India. It is not an infective disorder, this epidemic like COVID-19 or any other infective disease like H1N1. This is a disorder, this is a set of disorders which come because of our lifestyle. We popularly call them as non-communicable diseases, NCDs. So NCDs are becoming a today's basically people have a debate whether this is a disease or this is our lifestyle, but it is becoming focus of research in these days. Reason being that it affects majority of people, not it is not affecting only a small percentage like an infective disease or other disease can affect us a selected group of population, but here the whole population is the denominator for this. Accordingly, you will find a lot of news in lay literature as well as in scientific chronicles, journals, covering the non-communicable diseases, their risk factors, and is always there. And if you see that the lifestyle has actually changed, not only now, it has started since from the beginning of 19th century, and there has been a difference of chronology of events between the Western world and our population. Because if you see according the lifestyles have changed, accordingly the development of science, administration of antibiotics, administration of various therapeutic agents, as well as the healthcare structure expansion in different communities have changed the lifestyle as well as the lifespan of people. Now, what I mean by that, for example, in US, in 1900, the average lifespan was 49. And if you see in the left side of the column, in India, average lifespan was 25 years. It doesn't mean that everybody would live less than 25 years, because there used to be epidemics which would actually cause mortality in a lot of youngsters. So the average numbers would fall as low as third decade. But if you can see, gradually the lifespan has gone up from 49 to 68 in 50s, then 70, 74, 80. Now, average American white man lives 81 years, and an average white woman lives 84 years in US. Now, if you see in India, now our lifespan has also gone to 72 years. Women live more than, on an average, 2 to 3 years more than men. So this is because the primary health structure has expanded, antibiotics have come, and vaccines have come. They have made a major dent in taking care of infective disorders. Of course, some epidemics, some infections have been creeping on once in a while, like H1N1 came this year, last year, this year coronavirus came, in between some other infections came. But because of the advent of antibiotics and other health facilities, vaccines, the lifespan has gone up. But what has happened in parallel to this, even though if you can see, the average lifespan has given a different population demography. If you see in the US, the center panel shows that you have people living in the elderly population, 70, 80 year population, significant size is there. So if you see in populations like Kenya, which is something like in India, that you have a pyramid like this, that you have a very small number of people reaching to 7th or 8th decade. So people are now going beyond 6th, 7th, 8th decade, even in India also. Numbers are increasing, but still we are far behind what is in the West, Europe and USA. Now, there has been an epidemiological transition from infection being curbed because of vaccines and antibiotics. So mortality is low. The higher age population proportions have increased, but simultaneously we have started getting a different set of diseases other than infections, which is called chronic degenerative man-made diseases, the lifestyle diseases or non-communicable diseases, which I was alluding to before. So if you see this transition in this picture, if you can see, this has started in 1900. The yellow panel, if you see in US data, all diseases had gone up. Then they've started decreasing, and from 1960s or 70s, they have started plateauing. Now, the plateau is basically because the contribution from non-communicable diseases has gone up. If you see the orange panel, non-infectious diseases, they have gone up. Infections have gone down, but the degenerative and lifestyle disease gone up. That is why there is plateauing of the all-cause mortality and morbidity there in US. So similar trends are going to happen in developing countries or low and middle income countries in near future. And the communicable diseases, which are several infections, have been taken care of there, but they are still harboring significant number of population in our countries. In addition to that, we have so-called non-communicable diseases, which are also referred as communicated diseases, like obesity, like diabetes, coronary artery disease, hypertension, strokes, cancers, chronic lung disease, and of course, accidents and motor vehicle accidents or other road traffic injuries or even conflict-related injuries. Now, if you see the project rankings by WHO in 2000 versus 2020, in high-income countries, the ischemic heart disease will remain at the top killer in both low-income and high-income countries. And for this ischemic heart disease, diabetes mellitus means the disease of sugar disease, which is commonly called, is the #1 cause of ischemic heart disease, both in low-income as well as high-income countries. The second disorder is cerebrovascular disease in high-income countries. That means strokes. Then you have cancers, then you have diabetes, then you have chronic obstructive airway disease, and then there is Alzheimer's disease and other cancers. But the paradigm is little different in low-income countries at this moment. That means in 2030, we will have HIV, AIDS, and hepatitis higher than cerebrovascular disease and COPD. And still we have significant number of infections because of diarrhea and respiratory tract infections, which will be the number 2 or 3 cause of the mortality still here. Diabetes is still lower, but the trend is like that in maybe another 20, 30 years, or maybe 50 years, we may have same paradigm as is in the West. That means the non-communicable diseases will be the major cause of mortality and morbidity. It is not only mortality and morbidity, they also have an impact on our economy. So if you can see this one slide, I have picked up from WHO data, that if you see the projected income rankings, means the income losses because of the heart disease and stroke and diabetes, from 2005 to 2015, if you did the maximum income losses in countries like China and India, it is not like in US, UK, and Canada. You can see there is very small amount of the percentage of economy loss as compared to India and China. And the scenario is going to be worse. So in our countries like Bangladesh, in Africa, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, we have data like this, that you have in the same population living emaciated, malnourished people who are susceptible to various infections like diarrheal diseases, viral diseases, but same population youngsters even at birth start having high content of fat. That means they are obese, and of course they are susceptible to diabetes, hypertension, coronary artery disease in later part of life. So you have a double whammy, both the communicable set of diseases and non-communicable set of diseases, which is unlike the developed nations. Not only that, we have several other lifestyle conditions, like you see our youngsters, school children have succumbed to smoking and drug addiction. And I can show you this data that if you give a module of de-addicting in drug addiction or giving a module for stopping smoking, you find smoking cessation in countries like China, India, and other Asian countries is lesser than 5 to 10%, while as cessation rates are very high in developed countries like 30 to 40% in UK. This is some data which has come. Now, in addition to these lifestyle like smoking, drug addiction, or road traffic accidents, we also have significant burden from the psychiatric comorbidities, means the disorders, functional disorders, whereby you have depression, you have schizophrenia, you have suicidal ideation, and they also have an impact on the performance of an individual in their lifetime and also on the economy finally. So if you see the road traffic accidents, they are also higher in the lower income group countries than in the high income group countries. As you know, cancers are, nowadays, most of cancers are considered to be lifestyle disorders, because some are the other way. Cancer etiopathogenesis or causation is related to environmental insults. Of course, some genetic factors may be there, but most of cancers are because of our daily, what do we eat? For example, we take pesticides, we take plasticizers, endocrine disruptors, or some chemicals. Prolonged use of these agents may lead to various cancers. So we also have several other environmental problems. For example, we have less sun exposure, especially in the winters, and the way we dress. Because of this low sun exposure, we have vitamin D deficiency. Almost 90 to 100% population in India, and even in low middle income countries, they have high vitamin D deficiency. Our own data shows that 96% of women in Kashmir Valley have vitamin D deficiency. And if you are a youngster, school-going child, if you have low vitamin D stores, you are going to build up very weak bones. You are not going to have strong bones, and these bones are susceptible to what is called osteoporosis, means the bones become weaker after 35 years and they fracture, and fracture leads to, again, mortality and morbidity and income loss. So this is one of them. There are a lot of other environmental diseases. For example, you have deficiencies of selenium, you have deficiency of iodine, you have deficiencies of vitamin B12, and several other factors. We have iodine deficiency used to be very high in our region, especially in sub-Himalayan belt, and that used to cause mental deficiency as well as physical deformities. As you can see in this picture, it used to cause goiters. Fortunately, now iodine deficiency has been taken care by universal salt iodization, and because of salt iodization, the goiter rates are low, iodine deficiency disorders low, but we still find significant number of vitamin D, the iodine deficiency here. You can see, like we have seen in pregnant women in Kashmir Valley have iodine deficiency. We have recently published only last month this paper among Gujar and Bakarwal community of Jammu and Kashmir, that we still have vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin D deficiency is also there. We still have iodine deficiency in this population. So they need iodine supplementation. So iodized salt needs to be instituted to them on a regular basis as a habit. So the most important lifestyle disease, as I told you, is diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus is defined when your blood glucose level crosses a limit. Normally, our fasting plasma glucose remains between 70 to 100 milligrams. If it crosses, fasting blood glucose crosses 100 milligrams per deciliter, we call it as impaired fasting blood glucose. And when it crosses 126 milligrams, we take it as diabetes mellitus. So diabetes, why are we bothered about diabetes? In next few slides, I will tell you that diabetes leaves a lot of consequences to our organs in the body, and you get handicapped or you even die because of diabetes. So it needs to be controlled. When a diabetic individual becomes diabetic, the blood glucose level needs to be controlled, and so that the complication rates are low. But there are also, we have to also have preventive strategies to reduce the diabetes. Now in India, why diabetes is commoner? You must have heard in lay literature that they say that diabetes is going to be, India is going to be diabetes capital of the world in next decade. This time the maximum number of diabetics in the world are in China, and in next decade we think that the maximum number of diabetics in the world should be in India. Even the Western population, they are more obese than us, but we are actually more susceptible to diabetes. Why we are susceptible, we are going to actually discuss in next few slides. Diabetes is not only common in India, in fact in developing countries, it has changed its behavior in the developing countries. For example, if you see this slide on the right side, the diabetes comes in the fourth or fifth decade. It peaks in the fourth and fifth decade, and it is very high. It starts in second to third or fourth decade. That means when you are in school or college, when you are productive, when you get married, and when you have to contribute to the society and your family, at that time you start getting diabetes. It is unlike in West, if you see that diabetes is peaking in 6 to 7 decade when you have done most of the contribution to your society and family. That means the change of this diabetes paradigm, that it is coming early in this population, is very alarming. Not only, if you see, there is a recent study from ICMR, that is called ICMR in diabetes, INDAB study. It is a large multicentric study doing more than lakh of patients seen by in 38 the UTs and states in India. And we are part of this study. We are doing J&K and Ladakh. And in this study, we have found that diabetes prevalence has started going up. If you think that this INDAB has seen that earlier data had shown that in 2000 it was just 16%, maximum in 2000. Now it has been from 5% in 1980s to 16% in 2000. Today it is almost 25% population. That means every fourth and fifth individual has either diabetes or pre-diabetes in this country. And our own data on diabetes, again, here we have seen in Kashmir, it is also going on. There was a study done 20 years back by Dr. Zargar that had showed 6 to 7% prevalence. Now our own data today is crossing 15-20%. Except in this population, again, at Gujar and Bakarwal data, that they are fortunately still having lesser diabetes, 1 to 2%. But what is heartbreaking is that even the Gujar and Bakarwals have high pre-diabetes, means they are going to catch up with the general population soon, because diabetes is going to catch up them also if they don't take preventive measures. Probably they are acquiring the same lifestyle which we have, going from hunter-gatherer to the computer user, car users in today's world. And not only that, using very high calorie or dense foods which give high calories like triple burgers and so on. So these cold drinks, and you see that it looks like that even in US, although there is obesity, fortunately they have genes which are not predisposing them to high rate of diabetes. But what has happened in US population, that they have now, they had a peak of obesity, they had diabetes, now they have, each individual has started adhering to a healthy lifestyle. In 2010, a US task force banned all the food outlets in schools in US. This is to take care of the childhood obesity, because it is said that if you are obese as a child, you are going to be an obese adult. So probably the problem starts early. That is why this behavioral change has to be brought in your young age. Now we are following a Western population by 5 to 10 decades in culture, in education, in everything. But here we are rapidly progressing in mobile phone, information technology, cars. We are following them very closely, and so is in the non-communicable diseases. And this obesity is one of the important factors in causation of diabetes. And if you see the companies, the NMCs, which are Western companies, they are able to make a dent even at the populations where there is no soap, there is no dress, there is no food available, but they will be, they are susceptible to having these junk food. Now, obesity can have actually two types. You can have apple type of obesity or pear type. The obesity, apple type of obesity is not as dangerous. So if you have the pear type is not as dangerous, means your abdomen waist circumference has to be thin. If your waist becomes thick, means your abdomen is protrudent, it is more dangerous. You have a fatty liver, you have fat in intestine, you have fat around the heart and vessels, and this is going to cause heart attack, stroke, and diabetes. And this central obesity leads to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance means you have high insulin levels in the body. And we pick it up by having these dark patches, what is called acanthosis nigricans, around neck or around armpits or around these flexural lines. You have these dark patches. It is an indication that your level of insulin is high. When level of insulin is high, it means you have central obesity and you are at risk for these lifestyle diseases. Now, as I said, why India should have, Indians are not that obese as compared to the West. Why should they have more heart diseases? Why should they have more diabetes? There is a picture which I have borrowed from one of my friends. So this is Professor Yajnik from Mumbai, Pune, and this is Professor Yudkin. Both of them have same body weight. BMI is 22.3. But if you see the body fat, which is measured by DEXA machine, on the two sides, body fat is very high in the Dr. Yajnik, means Indian person. What does it mean? It means that probably we are not actually obese by our measurements, but we are probably obese from inside. What does it mean? That probably our muscle mass, which is a muscle mass is considered to be a sign of healthy body phenotype. If your muscle mass is replaced by fat, that means your fat mass is more. That means you are susceptible to these diseases. This fat content in the muscles is more in Indians, and it's a very, very bad sign. Fat releases a lot of inflammatory markers, cytokines. Even if you are vegetarian or non-veg, this higher content of fat leads to insulin resistance and a train of events which lead to morbidity. There is another condition which is very common, is polycystic ovary syndrome, which we have been working for last 2 decades. It is very common in India. Although in the Western population and globally it is 5 to 10%, but in India it is around 90 to 20%. That means every 4th or 5th woman is affected by PCOS. Why PCOS is important? Because polycystic ovary syndrome, when a woman gets pregnant, the baby which is in her womb gets insulin resistance, exposure to insulin resistance or gestational diabetes mellitus, means high glucose level, high insulin and high glucose level, it programs the metabolism of that baby to a high risk of insulin resistance in future. So you can imagine if 1/4 women are already having this disorder, probably it is the feeding or we can say feeding channel for the high prevalence of insulin resistance in the community. So that is why PCOS assumes importance. So the central phenomena is insulin resistance syndrome, and in PCOS then you can have reproductive dysfunction. Hyperandrogenism means you have more male hormone in women. You can have vascular dysfunction. Micro as well as macro, you can have central obesity. You can have abnormal fats in the blood. You can have high blood pressure. And of course, you have a lot of cancers which are associated with these conditions. So lifestyle disorders, we don't know whether they start in fetus or they start because of the later on because environmental insults, physical activity. But probably there is significant fetal programming, whether it is in PCOS women or non-PCOS women. The babies which are born, there is significant programming. That may alter your genetics, means your genes may be altered. You may have epigenetic changes that may lead to a barrage of metabolic problems later on. So we have this debate whether you have genetic or environmental influence, whether chicken is born or whether hen came first or egg came. This debate will remain, but it seems there is probably significant contribution from whatever the events happen during the intrauterine component of your life. So polycystic ovary syndrome, just two words that you, as I told you, it is called polycystic because you have a lot of cysts in ovaries. This is a abdominal surgery and you see these cysts are formed in ovaries. And if you take a cut section of these ovaries, these small ball-like structures are cysts. And if you do ultrasound, this necklace pattern in ultrasound also shows cysts in ovary. Problem is not just cysts, or problem is not just this unwanted hair growth or these severe acne or the beard these women get. Problem is the metabolism. Metabolism means they have metabolic syndrome, means high fats, HDL, high blood pressure, high waist circumference, and psychiatric comorbidities, insulin resistance, and high prevalence of diabetes in them. So that means this may be one of the important contributors to the lifestyle disorders. Now, why we bother about either PCOS, diabetes, or like obesity? We bother because they have consequences to our health and of course from health to economy. So what is diabetes doing? For example, diabetes can cause a problem in nerves. You must have heard you get neuropathy. This is one of the ways you get myotrophy, and it can block your blood vessels and cause low blood flow to the parts. And when you have no blood flow to parts, they get gangrene. This is dead tissue. Black tissue is gangrene. So you get what is called vascular gangrene. Sometimes you may get nerve involvement to an extent when the foot becomes abnormal, Charcot's foot, and you are not able to walk. And you may get problems in skin, like you have necrosis of skin. This is called necrobiosis. And you have shin spots. And you may have abnormal lipids. In diabetes, you may also have the problem in the hands and feet. You cannot do namaste, or you cannot do what is called prayer. This is called prayer sign. Hand has become so stiff that you are not able to fold them. And you get deputerinous contracture, again a phenomenon where tissues get affected in the hands. Then if you are there is a pregnant mother and she is diabetic, she may get baby which is bigger baby. So this we call as macrosome. It is a diabetic mother's child, and this is normal mother's child. And if you are born big obese child, then you have a problem. And you know, diabetes is treated by variety of managements. One is lifestyle, you have diet, you have exercise, then you have insulin. And incidentally, today is the 100th year of the wonder molecule which came as a cure for diabetes is insulin, the wonder molecule which earned 3 Nobel Prizes. It was today only discovered by one gentleman, Banting and West, and they shared the Nobel Prize that they discovered insulin, which brought a breakthrough in diabetes control. And over the years, there have been a lot of developments towards diabetes monitoring by glucometers, and then delivery of insulin using pens. And now we have artificial pancreas, or we have these what is called machines. We call as insulin pumps. They deliver insulin doses automatically. They check the blood glucose automatically. There is a lot of development is in this area, but there are still, even though if you have artificial pancreas, if you have stem cell therapy, and to finally get the glucose control, still there is a long route ahead in taking care. The cure for diabetes means where diabetes will get once for all cure is still looks to be a dream, but we have had a lot of developments in this for controlling. And diabetes is not alone. Diabetes actually has usually with the twin epidemic is hypertension. High blood pressure causes more mortality and morbidity. If diabetes is coupled with hypertension, the diabetes mortality and morbidity becomes 16 times. So hypertension is to be controlled. If you see, diabetes is the bigger problem in India, especially. It consumes the economy. If we take care of diabetes, the diabetes will become 3 times the health budget India has. So you have to take care for diabetes for prevention rather than treating. We may have insulin pumps, you may have insulin gadgets, you may have various modalities of treatment, but what is going to make a dent in reducing the burden on economy is going to prevent. How we will prevent that? We have to adopt a healthy lifestyle. One is you have to adopt what you eat, means you have a food guide pyramid, means we should adopt a lifestyle, for example, which Mediterranean people take diet, which is rich in seafood and vegetables and fresh fruit. And that is why there is diabetes prevalence is very low in Mediterraneans. And we should use very little fat, less carbohydrates, and more of fruit and vegetable. So if this is a general, this advice can be given to PCOS people, it can be given to diabetes people, but it should be given to general population. Then only we will be able to curb the epidemic of diabetes a little bit. As you know that a citizen time saves 9. If we are able to prevent diabetes, all the consequences and the burden on economy is going to fall. So coupled with diet is exercise. So you also have physical activity pyramids, which is for general public as well as diabetes, means you should do less of TV watching, video games, and all that what we are doing, using remote and using cars and all that. Now we should use this type of a lifestyle where we at least remain active, do our household chores or walk, or whatever way we should spend whatever we eat on daily basis, because now we are taking very high caloric foods daily. So we are not a nation, or we are not policy planners where we think that we found the diabetic epidemic and we take care of it immediately. It takes a while for us to stimulate. For example, I can give you a typical example that conflict in Kashmir started 3 decades back. We still have not put trauma hospitals or any modalities for firearm injuries. Conflict was almost, there are no firearm injuries now, but we have not been able to make a system. Similarly, in Indian system, the typical example is smallpox. Smallpox is dead long back, but still you will find hoardings by health and family welfare department that chichat ke pata dene wale ko 1 lakh ke naam. So what does it mean? That we are not actually catching up with time. Diabetes, coronary artery disease, obesity, fatty liver, cancers are eating up our population, both qualitatively, quantitatively, including economy. We should do something about it. We should have community health promotion. We should have school-based programs. We should force legislations, taxations on the food items, especially on those in agents which are a medium of lifestyle change, or we should do mass media campaigns. We may have to activate our government, and we can have non-governmental agencies, NGOs, to be roped in to take care. So we should actually educate masses on large scale so that they can assume healthy lifestyle, so that we are able to curb these lifestyle diseases. So we are in a transition. Transition means we have a double whammy. We have communicable disease on one hand, and we are non-communicable disease on the other hand. We need to also generate research in our population. What are the factors which are causing? But at least the factors which we know, we should curb them. Now, right now, we should tell government to enhance health budget. We should motivate policy planners as well as other governmental agencies to rope in the people who can make a change, or we should bring change ambassadors. We can make change. We are seeing people like cricketers or film stars, they bring advertisements about very weird things, but nothing is happening in this direction. So you and me today should take a pledge that we should spread at least this education to our families, to our neighborhood, to our students, and to our colleagues, that there is this double whammy here. There is this epidemic, there is this disaster in making. If we don't act fast, we may land up in trouble. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for your nice presentation. We have been enlightened in real sense, and we have come to the conclusion that unless and until we are individually ready with good efforts to better our lifestyle, we will not be able to just stop this epidemic that is going to be seen in the future years. So you have nicely made us understand what are the problems our nation, what are the problems that are being faced globally, and especially in the subcontinent, with special reference to what are the major health issues related to lifestyle disorders in Kashmir Valley. So we are highly privileged to have we have listened to you, and our participants are very happy. We really want some other presentation from your side, and perhaps our time is limited, and we have already schedules that are made for the rest of the days. But in some next uh, workshop or seminar at our individual institutions, we would definitely like you to deliver upon this topic, so that more and more people get aware about what are the coming epidemic disease, and what are the lifestyle disorders that we are going to face. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Geer, sir, you want to say something?
If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah. If Geer sir has something to say, then we will take questions from the participants. Sir, in the chat box, I have many questions posed by different participants. So I may read some of the questions, sir, with your permission.
Yes, please, go ahead.
One of the participants, Shaukat Ahmed, Professor Shaukat, he says that, is there any implication of lifestyle on polycystic ovarian syndrome?
Yes, Yes, that is a good question. Actually, polycystic ovary syndrome is said to be a brother or sister of diabetes mellitus. It is not. I do not think that is the separate disease. In fact, I have proposed a name change for this condition. We have a largest database with us from AIMS, New Delhi to Sikkim, Srinagar. I have collected over these 2 decades a lot of data, and we have this unique opportunity to have this data. And while researching on this data, we found that it is almost same. It has almost same metabolic signatures and consequences as diabetes has. So we have proposed that we should call it as pre-pro diabetes or paradiabetes. So it's not just different, that this only after a few years turns into a full-fledged diabetes. And we also see that it is not only women or girls who get affected. We do find that same metabolic signatures happen in women, the men in these families. More importantly, that these women, 50% of them are obese.
Okay. So there is another question from Firdos, Dr. Firdos Itto. He says, as said in Kashmir, people suffer vitamin D deficiency. How to overcome this deficiency? Because most of the people remain unaware of this deficiency. Is it possible to add the supplement of vitamin D like iodine has been added in salt, or we should purchase the same from pharmacy outlets?
Absolutely. Another good question. Very good thinking. Vitamin D deficiency, we have been actually, there has been a lot of debate. In fact, I am also one of the very high, there is a high profile committee made for vitamin D deficiency in India, because data has showed 70 to 100% deficiency. So government of India made a committee to say how should we curb vitamin D deficiency. So there were propositions that we should put vitamin D in oil, vitamin D in atta, vitamin D in rice, but it gives hiccup because vitamin D is not water soluble. It is only lipid soluble. So there are problems that the government is coming with some plan of supplementation. But as of now, there is no supplementation. There are 2 ways of getting vitamin D. One is that if you in summer or if you are in sun exposure, if you expose 10% of your body area, that means at least up to upper arms and face for 1 to 2 hours a day in sun, then you may get adequate vitamin D. But in winters, we don't have sunshine, so then we are likely to get vitamin D deficiency. So we should take vitamin D sachet or tablets. They are available. One or there are injections available. One injection, 6 lakh injection is good enough for 1 year. So, or one sachet you can take every 3 months, that will supplement vitamin D.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question is from Dr. Manzoor Mir. He says, what is the impact of diabetes and lifestyle in breast cancer and triple negative breast cancer? Please enlighten. Impact of diabetes
as we know that diabetes doesn't start suddenly. It is seen that when diabetic glucose becomes abnormal, your insulin resistance is at least started 10 years before. For example, somebody gets diabetes at 40 years of age. That means his insulin resistance has started at 30 years at least. Means the problem starts a decade early. And when you have diabetes, then complications start another 10 to 20 years later. Somebody gets diabetes at 40 years, he will start getting complication at 50, 60 years. So this high insulin level and insulin resistance is insulin being a growth promoter is incriminated as one of the cancer causing agents. So in breast cancer is definitely higher in those which are triple negative breast cancers. So diabetes is high. It means that the breast cancer is a lifestyle disease. We don't know there is a cause or effect relationship, but these two happen together. So we should try to curb lifestyle. Probably that might reduce the breast cancer incidence as such.
Thank you, sir. Another question is from Muhammad Anis Ganai. It says that PCOD be treated? Can PCOD be treated completely, as it has been observed that after taking medicine like metformin and myoinositol, it hardly controls for some time and then it again reverses, as it is major cause of infertility. Can you please enlighten on this?
No, PCOS is no longer a cause of infertility now, because in nowadays we have treatments available. Initially, it used to be the major cause of infertility. Now we have treatment available. Almost hardly anybody can remain infertile when you have PCOS. But why PCOS has assumed importance? It is the one of the medical conditions which involves maximum research nowadays, is because it has these metabolic consequences. It has a link to heart disease, it has a link to fatty liver, it has a link to diabetes, it has a link to vasculopathy, and so on. So those metabolic consequences of PCOS makes it a very important condition. Now it is true that when we treat it by insulin sensitizers like metformin, myoinositol is not the treatment. Metformin is being given, or anti-androgens are being given. 50% of them do recur. In fact, a decade or 2 decades back, when I was an MD student, there was no treatment for this condition. There was only diathermy or surgery. Now, when I did my DM, my first thesis was on metformin and PCOS. That is how this treatment came in. And metformin in PCOS takes care of things, but it is true that 50% may recur again if we stop this treatment. There is research going on that newer modalities of treatment may be coming in future, but we know that this condition may recur. There is no treatment for that, but they need to keep the lifestyle on. Lifestyle modification should be continued.
Okay, sir, thanks. Sir, we have another question. Dr. Shaukat Ahmed says, quite young people suffer from thyroid disorders nowadays. How can it be avoided?
See, again, fortunately, thyroid dysfunction is not as dangerous to life as diabetes or PCOS is. Diabetes has consequences, complications, PCOS has complications. Thyroid dysfunction is not very dangerous, and treatment for this condition is very simple. That is just taking a tablet daily. Very cheap medication and very simple treatment. So, and thyroid, if you don't take treatment for a few days, you miss it, it remains uncontrolled, consequences are not very high. But this disease is also very common in epidemic proportions here. We don't know why it is there. Probably there is a link between the iodization of salt and thyroid dysfunction. Initially, iodine deficiency used to be thyroid, causing thyroid deficiency. Nowadays, it seems that we are giving iodine, it also induces autoimmunity and causes thyroid dysfunction. But whether it is young or old, it is not a big problem. It is a very simple disease. We should not bother much for thyroid dysfunction. If we have to bother, we have to bother for diabetes and PCOS, coronary artery disease, cancers.
Okay, sir. Thank you. There is another question from Dr. Mohammed Anis Ganai. He says that do proton pump no, it is from Shiba Drabu, sorry. Do proton pump inhibitors like levosulfide cause hormonal problems in women, especially PCOS?
Sorry, what levosulfide?
No, sir. The question, yeah, levosulfide.
No, that is a drug effect that you must have actually seen that prolactin level may rise because of the drug temporarily. It is not a problem. However, I should mention here that there is a very bad precedence in our valley that people do self-medication. Even medicators give these proton pump inhibitors, like everybody takes this pentop tablet, this, that. They are not those benign drugs. They are very dangerous drugs. They cause osteoporosis, they cause kidney failures, glomerulonephritis, they can cause cancers. So we should avoid these stomach medications as much as possible. Everybody in home has a box of these medications. They cause a lot of problems. This hormonal problem, prolactin elevation, is not dangerous, it's a temporary phenomenon.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, we have hundreds of questions from participants, but I will ask the last question. It's from Dr. Riaz Ahmed Dar. During winter seasons, we don't get much exercise. How can we protect ourselves from becoming obese?
Yes. See, when exercise is a behavioral change. It is not that whether it is snow or whether there is a cold or anything. It depends upon your behavior. By nature, as I told you earlier in the lecture, that why Western people have been able to curb diabetes and obesity to a greater extent, even if they eat very large meals and big high caloric diets, dense foods, but they don't get that much obese or that much diabetes. Diabetes in Europe is just about 2%, which is like our Gujar Bakarwals. Diabetes in America is 5 to 6%. Diabetes in India is 20-25%. We did a study in Karachi, Dhaka, Delhi, and Chennai. 25 to 28% have diabetes. That means the diabetes is catching here fast because by nature we are not active. You will find in city of Srinagar, hardly 1,000 people must be doing a morning walk. Lakhs of people are sitting idle at home. So it is more of a behavioral issue. You can, if some people, I have a former minister who is diabetic, who never comes out of home. He does is in his room only. He shows me that what he keeps a log of his steps in the mobile. He shows me he does a 5-kilometer exercise daily. It is a more of a behavioral issue. If people want to do exercise, there are ways of doing it, but it has to be done. We have to make people aware that we need to be active. Initially, our ancestors, or at least rural population, used to be active because they were doing farmer activities, field activities. Now we have stopped those activities. Everybody is building concrete structures in the land. They are occupying the land and roads are being occupied. There are no footpaths. There are no parks. We have to devise a way of our own if we want to prevent our health. Government is not going to come to our rescue.
Yeah, that's right, sir.
Right.
Sir, thanks a lot. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedule and sharing your wisdom with us and enlightening us about the topic. Sir, thanks a lot once again.
Dr. Dr. Ashraf, this is Dr. Geer over here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. As always, it has been very exhilarating, very erudite and informative presentation. And as always, our participants might have found it highly rewarding. We are highly thankful to you that in spite of your very busy schedule in the hospital, in the OPD, you have been sparing time for these presentations. And for this information of participants, may I inform them that Dr. Ashraf Saab is the most sought after person all across India when it comes to disease, discussing diseases like PCOS, diabetes, thyroid disorders, vitamin D deficiency. He is also a member of several national task forces. So it's really great of him that he accepts our invitation every time we invite him and request him to deliver a presentation. And moreover, these issues are very burning issues these days because most of us are finding a little time to move across and be mobile, but you have thrown some light on how to make it a behavioral change and how to adopt it in our lifestyle and make it an inherent part of our day-to-day living. So once again, thank you very much for your presence and participation. Would be looking forward to have you again and again in future, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ishaq sir, it follows in my commitment, social commitment. It follows in line with my social commitment. So I will always be there for you. Thank you, sir.
Kudos and salutations to you for that, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Abid Saab, you may please continue with the participant presentation.
Yeah, inshallah, sir. Do we have Dr. Ejaz Saab there? Dr. Ejaz Ahmed Dar Saab from Islamic College. He was ready in the morning. He told me that he will be presenting. Is he there?
I would request the participant to please raise your hand so that I can find you. Ejaz Ahmed Dar, yes. I'm asking him to unmute him. Ajaz sir, please unmute yourself. Yes, please go ahead. Can you hear me?
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah, you are audible.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, no problem, sir.
Hello?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
You are
sharing
audible,
my
but
screen. We are
we
having...
see your desktop, but not the PPT. Your desktop is visible.
Is my screen visible?
Yeah, yeah, it's visible now. Go to the slide, please.
Esteemed Professor Geet Saab, Dr. Abid Bande Saab, and my dear colleagues, I welcome you all with the greetings. Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to all of you. I'm highly thankful to you that you have given me a chance, despite the fact my presentation was scheduled on 14th of this month. And at the outset, I would like to say that this topic is concerned to all of us. I'm going to talk about the disaster profile of Jammu and Kashmir. As most of the participants are from Jammu and Kashmir, and nature has endowed us with such a location in the Himalayan system that we are vulnerable to a number of disasters. When we are going to face the events in future, we should have some sort of knowledge so that the preventive measures can be taken in advance. That's why I have chosen this topic. And during my talk, I will be talking about the disaster, hazard, vulnerability. I'm going to highlight the major hazards that can affect Jammu and Kashmir. And at the same time, I will highlight the areas in Jammu and Kashmir which are vulnerable to different disasters. I'll be talking about the global distribution of earthquakes because it is very important to understand so that we can understand the seismicity of Jammu and Kashmir. We know in a disaster, there is community failure. A community is not able to perform its normal functioning. There are widespread damages. There are human casualties, economic losses, environmental losses, and it always exceeds the ability of the affected community to cope up the situation without seeking external help. So in case of a disaster, there is a widespread damage, but what is a hazard? Hazard is just an event or occurrence that has the potential to cause injury to life or damage to property. It is a sort of threat, and it is this threat, this hazard, which may turn into a disaster if preventive measures are not taken into account. And the most important is vulnerability. If we want to prevent these disasters, if we want to prevent hazards becoming disasters, we have to reduce the level of vulnerability. It is basically the susceptibility of a community to a hazard due to its physical and socio-economic conditions, or it determines the extent to which an individual, a community, or an area is exposed to the impact of a hazard. Basically, vulnerability are the gaps or flaws, or we can say weaknesses in a system. And these weaknesses can be in terms of, and we say there are poor design and construction of the houses, as is the case with Jammu and Kashmir, when there is unregulated land use planning, when there is poverty and inequality, when there is poor environment management, when there is over exploitation of resources. This is what happens in a disaster. There is community failure to perform its normal functioning. There are human casualties, there are economic losses, environmental losses, and the most important part is that there is administrative failure as well, as we have witnessed in 2014. Now the question is, what causes disaster? Disaster is basically the result of a hazard that may be natural or human induced. Here my point is that hazard is a potential disaster, and it is this hazard which may turn into a disaster. Say for example, if flood is a hazard, when it comes at a time that the community is not ready to face it, as happened in 2014 in Kashmir, we witnessed a massive flood. Uh, we will not be in a position to save lives, and in such a case, the damage will be huge, and in such a case, this flood will become a disaster. But if our community is ready to face this flood, we can have preventive measures in advance. We can evacuate people. We can build flood resistant houses. In such a case, the damage can be minimized in such, and in this way, this flood will not become disaster. So a flood, so a hazard and a disaster can be differentiated on the basis of the consequences. Now, one thing is certain, that we can't prevent these hazards. They are going to affect us. They are going to create sufferings for the people. But one thing we can make, that we can prevent hazards we can prevent hazards becoming disasters. This is the point which I want to convey here. Impact of a disaster depends upon two things. One is intensity of a hazard, and it can't be controlled by anybody. Say for example, God forbid, if an earthquake of magnitude 7 is going to happen, there is no such technology in the world that the magnitude of this earthquake can be reduced from 7 to 6. Now, what is the second factor? That is the level of vulnerability of a community to a hazard, and this can be reduced by proper policy measures. Now, the question is how this vulnerability increases. The vulnerability is due to when there is limited access to the resources, when there are so many sick people, when there is poverty, when there are lack of institutions, when there is a lack of basic knowledge and education, trying and skills pertaining to disaster management, when there is population explosion, when there is unregulated urbanization, when there is environmental degradation, and the most important, when there is dangerous location to a place, as is the case with Jammu and Kashmir. So it is the level of vulnerability of a community that determines the extent of damage. This is very important to know to whom we are talking about, particularly to know their location. We know Jammu and Kashmir occupies a very strategic, a very sensitive place in the northwestern Himalayas. As in the footnote session, our one Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Talat Saab, has beautifully explained this part, that Jammu and Kashmir lies in the western Himalayan region, which is very sensitive. The whole Himalayan zone, including Jammu and Kashmir, is vulnerable to a number of disasters, because the Himalayas itself have evolved due to the convergence of two tectonic plates when the Indo-Australian plate collided with the Eurasian plate during a tertiary period about 47 million years ago. And we know that the present place where Himalayas stand today was previously occupied by a sea, and it was Tethys Sea. Now turning this Tethys Sea into the world's highest mountainous system, there has been a massive tectonic event, and this tectonic event is in terms of when the Indo-Australian plate collided with the Eurasian plate during tertiary period. Here my point is that Jammu and Kashmir occupies a very strategic position, a very sensitive place in the Himalayan system. That is why we are vulnerable to a number of hazards. This is the list of major hazards that can affect Jammu and Kashmir. Among the natural hazards, we can have earthquakes, floods, landslides, avalanches, droughts, snow blizzards, windstorms, and cloud bursts. Among the human-induced, we may have fires, political turmoil, civil unrest or wars, or we may have road and rail accidents. We know earthquake does not occur everywhere. There are some sensitive plates. Rather, we can say there are three major seismic belts in the world which are prone to earthquakes. And the first is the Circum-Pacific Belt, also called the Pacific Ring of Fire. In this zone, we record about 65% of the world's earthquakes. It is basically a zone of convergent plate movement between Pacific plate and the American plate and the Asian plate. Here I would like to take help from plate tectonics. We know that the earth is divided into crust, mantle, and core. The crust and some portion of upper mantle is tectonically called lithosphere, and due to plate tectonic reasons, the lithosphere has been broken into large lithospheric slabs of rock, which are called tectonic plates. And these tectonic plates are in a state of motion. At places the plates move towards each other. The plate movement is called convergent plate movement. At places the plates move away from each other, and the movement is called divergent plate movement. And there are some places in the world where plates slide past each other, and the moment is called conservative plate movement. Now, talking about the global distribution of earthquakes, we have this Circum-Pacific Belt, which is basically a convergent plate movement zone formed by the Pacific plate and the American plates and Asian plates. In this zone, we record about 65% of the world's earthquakes. Now I'm talking about Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir lies here in the Alpine Himalayan belt, and it has been formed, it has been formed due to the convergence of Indo-Australian plate with the Eurasian plate. Jammu and Kashmir occupies a place in this belt, which is called Alpine Himalayan belt, where about 21% of the world's earthquakes are being recorded. And the third seismic belt is mid-Atlantic ridge belt, which is a zone of divergent plate movement where the plates are moving away from each other. As we have seen in the global distribution of earthquakes, Jammu and Kashmir is the westernmost Himalayan region, and it lies in one of the seismic belt of the world, that is mid-continental seismic belt, and which is a zone of convergence of two tectonic plates, that is the Indo-Australian plate and the Eurasian plate. This is the actual position of Jammu and Kashmir, which is under tremendous stress and strain on account of the convergence of Indo-Australian and Eurasian plates. That is why the Jammu and Kashmir falls either in seismic zone 5 or seismic zone 4. And we know that most parts of the Kashmir Valley falls in seismic zone 5, where earthquakes of very high risk are expected with the intensity or magnitude of more than 8. And talking about rest of Jammu and Kashmir, rest of Jammu and Kashmir lies in or falls in seismic zone 4, where earthquakes of magnitude of about 8 are expected. So it is clear that Jammu and Kashmir either falls in seismic zone 5 or seismic zone 4, and which demands proper implementation of preparedness and mitigation measures from all stakeholders.
Ejasab, I may interrupt you for a minute. We have another participant waiting, so please conclude now.
Okay, sir. Another major event is the flood. We know the low-lying parts of the Kashmir Valley, particularly Srinagar, and parts of Jammu are prone to flooding due to a number of reasons. And one of the reasons is layout of Kashmir Valley is so prone to flooding. As we know the geohistory of Kashmir, it has been a lake which was called Setisar Lake. And this Setisar Lake was surrounded by mountains from all sides. In the subsequent periods of geohistory, there has been a massive tectonic event in the northern Kashmir, and the of water which was occupying this lake finally finds its exit when a mountain system got disrupted there. This is how this valley came into being. Now we are converting this lake into a densely populated region, that too with poor planning, and nature will accept it only up to a certain limit. Another major factors which are responsible for flooding is the mismanagement of Jahlim floodplain, as we have wrongly used this Jahlim floodplain for agriculture and construction purposes. Encroachment of water bodies, you can see this image. This is the extension of water bodies in 1911, and this is the extension of water bodies in 2011. The difference, what sort of encroachments we have done to these water bodies. Faulty urbanization and faulty construction of roads, as is being witnessed particularly in Srinagar city, are the other factors which disturbs the hydrological flow and are responsible for flooding. Climate change always produces uncertainty in precipitation, and it is one of the factors responsible for flooding. Landslide is one of the hazards, as we see in this map, this dark purple color, the parts of Bandipora, Kargil, Anantnag, and Kishtawar, Pulwama, and Shopian. They are prone to landslides, and there are reasons responsible for the landslides which are happening in these areas. And the reasons are the vulnerability of geologically young, unstable, and fragile rocks, deforestation, unscientific road construction, terracing, encroachment on hill slopes. Avalanche is one of the hazard. In an avalanche, there is flow of mass of snow, ice, and rocks. They are rapidly falling down from the mountain, and these are the events which are affecting Gurez Valley, Kashmir Valley, Gurez Valley, Kargil, and Ladakh. And this is the number of deaths which took place over a period of time due to this hazard. Snow blizzard, it is basically the snowstorm which is being caused in some of the areas. In this event, the loose snow is lifted from the ground by strong winds, and this happened in one of the villages of Kolgam district on February 18, 2005. That is Waltingo. Now I want to conclude that Jammu and Kashmir is a multi-hazard prone region due to its location, layout, topography, faulty planning, and underdeveloped economy. The two massive disastrous hazards are looming over the region, that is earthquakes and floods, which demand serious attention from all the stakeholders and proper planning in a holistic manner. We can prevent hazards becoming disasters if we learn to live in harmony with nature and take precautionary measures. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ejaz sir. Thanks for this interesting and informative presentation. Sorry for the paucity of time. We have another participant waiting. Seems it was very informative. We should have given you more time, but unfortunately for the time. May I now invite Dr. Arshid Iqbal sir to present his work. start sharing his screen. He may kindly be unmuted. Please unmute Arshid Iqbal, sir.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon to all of you. The topic that I have chosen for presentation is the most common structural chromosomal abnormalities, that is deletion and duplication, and will deliberate upon their origin and genetic consequences. As far as the deletion is concerned, it is a chromosomal alteration involving the loss of a segment of a chromosome, which may be located anywhere along the chromosome. When the deletion occurs near one end, it is called terminal deletion. And when it occurs from the interior of the chromosome, it is called intercalary or interstitial deletion. It would be pertinent to mention that deletion was the first structural alteration that was detected by Bridges from his genetic studies on X chromosome of Drosophila. Now, as far as the chromosomal duplication is concerned, it is a repeated segment of the genetic material. Various kinds of duplications have been observed. If the duplicated region is adjacent to the original segment, the process is known as tandem duplication. Whereas, if they are separated by non-duplicated regions, the duplication is said to be displaced. And if they exist as independent fragment, then it is termed as extrachromosomal. As far as the origin of most of the chromosomal structural changes are concerned, they are caused due to one or more breaks along the axis of the chromosome, followed by either the loss or rearrangement of genetic material. Chromosomal breakage occurs spontaneously in a low frequency. However, the rate is increasing relatively in a high frequency by several radiations, chemical agents, and by several viruses like measles virus. In addition, some genes are also known to induce chromosome breakage like activator dissociator gene in males. Respected viewers, let me now discuss the origin of chromosomal deletions. As far as the terminal deletions are concerned, they are the simplest rearrangements involving only one breakpoint in one chromosome. This event produces two pieces of chromosome material, one with the centromere and one without. The fragment that is without centromere is termed as eccentric fragment, and that portion cannot go through mitosis. Why? Because it has no centromere and is therefore lost. As far as the intercalary or interstitial deletions are concerned, they develop from two breakpoints. That means two breaks are required within a chromosome arm, and this loss of intercalary segment between these breakpoints are produced. Okay, let me now discuss the origin of chromosomal duplications. Like deletions, duplications also arise as the result of chromosome breakage and reunion of chromosome segment within the homologous chromosome. as a result of which one of the two homologs involved in the production of the duplication ends up with the deletion one, and while the other has a duplication for the concerned segment. Duplications may also arise due to unequal crossing over between synapsid chromosome during meiosis. This type of duplication error has been observed in chromosomal region called 16A of X chromosome in Drosophila. Replication errors before meiosis may also lead to chromosomal duplications. Respected audience, let me now discuss the several genetic consequences that are produced by chromosomal deletions. The first one is that the most deletions produce recessive lethal effects. However, large deletions may also produce dominant lethal effect as well. The second one is that the deletion of a segment on one homolog sometimes unmasks the recessive alleles present on the other homolog, leading to their unexpected expression. As in such cases, it seems that recessive alleles are showing dominance, and that effect is called pseudodominance. The third effect is that the crossing over is completely absent in the deleted region of a chromosome, since this portion is present in only one copy of the deleted heterozygotes. The fourth is that the deletion analysis makes it possible to compare a linkage map based on recombinant frequency with the chromosome map based on deletion mapping. By and large, why this comparison of a purely genetic creation. Finally, many deletions produce a distinctive morphological effects. These phenotypic effects of deletions depend on the size and location of deleted sequence on the genome. Larger the deletion, the more genes are likely to be involved, and the more drastic effects will be there. Okay, a number of genetic consequences of duplications have been detected. One of them is gene redundancy. Gene redundancy means the existence of multiple genes in the genome of an organism which performs the same function. Another genetic consequence of duplication is phenotypic variation. As such, most duplications have no phenotypic consequence, but larger duplications of chromosomal material lead to gene imbalances. That may be lethal to a zygote, or even in the case of plants, to the pollen or ovules that carry them. The classical example of phenotypic variation due to duplication is the Bar mutant on the X chromosome of Drosophila. Duplications play a very important role in the evolution of gene families, because an extra copy of the gene is free to evolve through the acquisition of mutation into a gene having a more specialized or different function. This process does not compromise the original function, since an intact copy of the original genome is there. Duplications are therefore the raw material for evolution. One such example is the evolution of several forms of the globin chain of hemoglobin. Several globin chains have evolved from a single ancestral precursor, thus making individual genes available to take on specialized roles. Okay, I would like to close this presentation with this note that, number one, most of the chromosomal structural abnormalities arise due to chromosomal breakage and reunion. And another one, that is chromosomal deletions have more genetic consequences than chromosomal duplications. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Arshad. Thanks for this nice, brief, and well composed presentation on genetic deletions and duplications and their consequences. Uh, thanks a lot. We may now conclude this afternoon session.
Yes,
So we have the
yes, you please continue, Abid sir.
yeah, we have the attendance link already in the Zoom chat. Somebody is saying that it should be in the WhatsApp, but please mark it in the Zoom chat only.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abid Saab, for your moderation. Thanks
Thanks
to
a lot,
all
sir.
participants for their presentations, as well as for being very patient to both the lead lectures today. And I would request all the participants to kindly ensure their attendance, because let me inform you all, Registrar Saab had entered our, he was present 2-3 times in the day. And at one point of time, he complained that in the afternoon, very few participants were present. So lest we have to cut our sorry figure, please ensure that all of you are present. And in case anybody cannot attend because of one or the other reason, so he may remain absent. Not that he just, there will be somebody on his name and but person will not be present. That should not happen. And rest, with your kind cooperation and support only, we can take it to a logical conclusion. And this course can be completed successfully, because there are certain basic formalities, basic criteria which we have to fulfill regarding attendance, presentation, evaluation, etc. Though I do understand that for teachers, it is very hard to sit across from 10:30 to 4:30 and listen more, because we are usually accustomed to talking rather than listening. But this is a period when it's a learning time. So refresher courses, we are learners, as I said at the very onset of the lecture of this course. Therefore, I would once again request you to cooperate and do not please bombard our groups with hundreds of questions. That exhausts us. Some of the participants are posing so many queries and questions in the WhatsApp group that we get exhausted by the evening that answering those queries. Today I had put Muzaffar Saab to answer the queries, but look at the number of barrage of queries which he has received. So please restrict your queries to only the most urgent ones, most important ones, and try to avoid asking unnecessary queries which are already there. Many a times we have posted a link, still people keep asking, where is this link, where is that link? Yesterday I had posted a snapshot of the people who will be presenting today. Still somebody complained that it is showing a wrong date. When I am giving a fresh instruction, see, some people presented today who were not scheduled to present. So obviously their name will not be called on the day when they are scheduled. But I cannot update that list every day. It's not possible for me. I don't have any clerical assistance. Please try to understand. I am doing it all alone. See, I'm monitoring today. These ITSS people also did not join in the afternoon session. So I had to conduct the IT also minute by minute myself. How will it be humanly possible for me to answer your queries, conduct the session, then update the list also? So please have some mercy and spare us from these banks which are not required, and restrict because we need to conserve energy so that we can fruitfully answer your relevant and significant queries. So once again, I thank you all for all your patience and cooperation, and hope that in days to come, you will continue to offer your full support and cooperation. And with your cooperation, we will be able to conclude this course successfully. And inshallah, you will go back home with a lot of knowledge, new information, and you will remember this course for a long time to come.
Sure, inshallah.
I'll keep the Zoom link open for some more time. Maybe some people have not noticed the link, or maybe it is being reposted by Muzaffar Saab. Yes, I can see he has reposted it again. I'll keep it open for another few minutes till all the people fill up their attendance form. Then I'll close the link. Meanwhile, those who want to leave can feel free to leave. Thank you very much.